Tampa Bay is like no place else.
Wait, you can't recycle the bag. You have to throw it away.
Proper recycling keeps it that way for everyone. Bags tangle in machinery and can bring sorting efforts to a halt.
No bags.
Trash the bags and keep our recycling program moving forward.
No, Mom, look. No plastic bags.
Do your part to keep our recycling bag-free. Trash the tanglers or return them to participating retailers. For more information, visit tampabayrecycles.org.
These are the jobs you may not see every day, but just know we're working hard to make Hillsborough County a better place to live, work, and play. Subscribe to our YouTube page for more great county-related videos, only on HTV.
Welcome to a meeting of your Planning Commission, the official local planning agency for the cities of Tampa, Temple Terrace, Plant City, and unincorporated Hillsborough County. The Planning Commission provides innovative leadership and long-range vision that contributes to the creation of a thriving, prosperous community that offers opportunity, fairness, and choice in how we live, move, learn, work, and play. For more information about the Planning Commission, please call 813-272-5940. Follow us on social media or visit our website at planhillsborough.org.
Good afternoon and welcome to the March 10th, 2025 regular meeting of the Hillsborough County City-County Planning Commission. We thank you for attending this meeting. Your comments and participation are encouraged. For those attending in person and wishing to speak on any agenda item, please sign the register at the rear of the room. Turn off any devices that may be a distraction. To minimize feedback in the audio, all online participants in the meeting will be muted until it is their opportunity to speak. Planning commissioners should unmute themselves to indicate that they would like to speak. Please be sure to state your name at the beginning of your remarks for the benefit of the clerk. There will be an opportunity for members of the public to provide comments. When your name is called, you will be unmuted when it is your turn to speak. Please wait until the chair calls on you to begin speaking. State your name at the beginning of your comments and adhere to the time limits. If anyone has difficulties or is watching via HTV and would like to provide comments to be included in the record for the local government hearing, please email them to planner@plancom.org. For action items, the meeting will be conducted as follows. The agenda item will be introduced. Staff will give their presentation with a 15-minute time limit. The applicant will be given the opportunity to make a presentation with a 15-minute time limit. Following presentations, members of the public may address the Planning Commission when recognized by the chair. Public comment will be heard for 3 minutes per person. The applicant will be afforded a 3-minute period for rebuttal or response. Planning commissioners will ask questions. Public comment will be closed. And then upon a motion, a second, and a discussion, a vote will be taken. With that introduction, I'll ask Commissioner Buzza to lead us in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Would all please rise?
Dear Lord, I ask for blessings of wisdom, knowledge on this committee as we seek to better the lives of Hillsborough County residents. Lord, you're the all-powerful. We appreciate everything you provide us with. It's your loving name we pray today. Amen.
Amen.
Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Buzza. All right. With that, I'd like to ask the clerk to please go ahead and call roll.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Belden?
Here.
Buzza?
Here.
Cardenas?
Here.
Kona?
Here.
Kress? Linkus?
Here.
Lauk? Saria?
Here.
Sieben? Orton?
Lori Belangia for Michelle Orton.
Rodriguez?
Here.
Joseph?
Here.
Thank you. You have quorum.
All right. Next item is approval of the minutes for the following meetings. Hillsborough County Planning Commission regular meeting minutes, January 13th, 2025. Hillsborough County Planning Commission public hearing on Hillsborough County Plan Amendments meeting minutes, January 13th, 2025. Hillsborough County Planning Commission regular meeting minutes, February 10th, 2025. Hillsborough County Planning Commission public hearing on City of Tampa Plan Amendments meeting minutes, February 10th, 2025. And Hillsborough County Planning Commission public hearing on Hillsborough County Plan Amendments meeting minutes, February 10th, 2025. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion. Second.
All right, motion to approve by Commissioner Kona, second by Commissioner Bowden. Any questions from the commissioners before we take our vote? Then would all signify their agreement by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Next up, we have public input for items not scheduled on the agenda, and there was no one signed up for the public comment, so we will move on to item number 3, presentations, and we will start off with 3A, State of the Bay 2024 Water Quality Results, and the presenter is Maya Burke, Assistant Director of the Tampa Bay Estuary Program.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Maya Burke. I'm the Assistant Director of the Tampa Bay Estuary Program, and it's my pleasure to be with you here today to let you know the state of the Bay and how water quality is doing. Each year, the Tampa Bay Estuary Program produces a 2-pager report card that summarizes water quality conditions relative to regulatory limits that are established for many of the entities that have a nitrogen load allocation to the Bay. And then we also measure progress relative to voluntary goals that we've all committed to as a region to protecting water quality for. And Hillsborough County is one of our primary partners at the Tampa Bay Estuary Program. And so I'm happy to share this information with you so you can see how your work is contributing to the overall condition of the Bay. Just as a high-level overview, the Tampa Bay Estuary Program is one of 28 estuaries of national significance, and our work really focuses on 3 areas of responsibility. We work on clean waters and sediments, thriving habitats, and abundant wildlife, and having an informed, engaged, and responsible community that's involved in all of those things. So we have a lot of synthesis science and reporting that we do on those topics, but today I'm just going to focus on clean waters and sediments and the work that we do in that respect. So oftentimes when I present these results, we start with just sort of a stoplight report card. So are we red, yellow, or green? And that's what a lot of people focus on. So I'm trying this a little bit differently today to walk through how we get to the place where we can assign one of those color conditions to the Bay. And it's really all focused on our management paradigm. We manage water quality in Tampa Bay for the benefit of seagrass resources. We work together to reduce nitrogen loads so that we are not fueling algae blooms, so that we have clearer water where sunlight can make it from the surface of the Bay all the way down to the Bay bottom, so that the plants, seagrasses, are able to thrive and grow because they have those basic needs that they have met. And so as a region, we've really made quite a bit of progress controlling nitrogen levels. And this slide really shows how the sources of nitrogen pollution in our community have changed over time. So we've actually, while we've grown our population, we've more than doubled from about 1.5 million folks when we started as a program in the early 1990s to more than 3 million people in the region now. We've actually reduced the amount of nitrogen going in the Bay from over 9,000 tons of nitrogen to the Bay in the 1970s and 80s to around 3,000 tons of nitrogen now. So that just goes to show you that with smart growth, good planning, and working together and making the requisite investments in water quality, both the economy and the environment are not at odds with one another. In fact, you can do both of those things together. We've made such great improvements and investments in water quality, largely because we've worked on tackling wastewater treatment issues, and we've invested in advanced wastewater treatment. And by doing that, that means that we've reduced overall nitrogen loads to the Bay, and that leaves the major sources of nitrogen pollution to the Bay. It's no longer wastewater treatments, although that treatment plant effluent, although that is still a significant source. But the top 2 sources of nitrogen pollution, so the biggest opportunities for improvements, are really coming from tackling stormwater from those non-point sources, so things like residential fertilizer ordinances, and land use practices that are adopting things like low-impact design techniques. These are things that have a big and outsized impact on water quality moving forward. And then the second most common source of nitrogen pollution to the Bay is actually from atmospheric deposition. Again, these are things that should be important to this body because it includes things like power generation, but also importantly, it involves tailpipe emissions. As you know, we have a lot of different traffic issues. We have major bridges that traverse portions of Tampa Bay. And with that comes a significant nitrogen load out of the tailpipe emissions of those cars. So it's important that we invest in transportation infrastructure that allows for things like carpooling, alternative modes of transit like walking, biking, public transit, and also investing in infrastructure for things like clean electric vehicles. These are all things that benefit not only the community and our way of life, but they also benefit water quality in the Bay. So I'm just going to keep walking you around now these different pieces of the management paradigm and how we tackle each one. And so the next thing is, I told you how much work we've done to reduce the nitrogen pollution to the Bay. As a result, we've seen decreased algae. And so we work with our partners, including the Environmental Protection Commission of Hillsborough County, to measure chlorophyll A, which is basically an indicator of how much algae is growing in the water. And you can see the results for this year over here on the left side of this table. And essentially what it's showing is in every single bay segment, except for Hillsborough Bay segment, so the most industrialized portion of the bay, like near the port facilities, we actually were exceeding the amount of algae that you would like to see in the bay on an annual average kinds of basis. So water quality in Hillsborough Bay, pretty good. Water quality elsewhere, we're seeing more algae than we would like to see. So what does that look like? How do we get that information? This is showing you these long-term algae trends from the 1970s to present. And you can see here that while we've generally been below these blue lines, which represent the different targets that we have established, either regulatory or voluntary as a community, by making those investments, we're generally staying below those targets over time. But the last dot in almost every bay segment, you see we're up to close to flirting with that limit. And so it's just kind of showing this year in comparison to where we've been in the past, we're sort of seeing it trend in a direction that isn't really what we would hope for the kinds of conditions that can support good seagrass resources, lots of abundant seagrasses in the bay. So why is that? What's going on? I told you how much we've invested in nitrogen load reduction. Why was this year different? Well, one of the biggest things was 2024 is actually one of the wettest years on record since we've ever been measuring these kinds of things. And so when you look here at this graph, this is basically showing the extent to which the amount of rainfall that we observed deviates from an annual average of about 52 inches of rain each year. So you can see 2024, we saw quite a bit of rain, and with that comes stormwater pollution, which we know is also contributing a significant nitrogen load to the bay. I also just want to call your attention to, not only did we have one of the wettest years on record in 2024, but we're coming off one of the driest years on record in 2023. So we're now seeing these sort of extreme conditions back to back, and how the bay is able to cope with those things is of interest to researchers and bay managers. But all this rain doesn't come like nice trickle even throughout the year. What you can see here is actually in the early part of 2024, we were doing really, really well with respect to how much algae we were seeing in the water. And that has a lot to do with the dry year that we were coming off of. And really the first half of 2024 was very dry as well. So these box and whisker plots are basically showing where the boxes are. That's about a normal part of the distribution, so where you would kind of expect to see observations. When you see those red dots, that's representing what we observed in 2024. When they're very low on the whisker, that means you're seeing really, really low amounts of algae in the water. And when they're up high, that means you're seeing lots of algae in the water. So across all four major bay segments, you'll see for the first half of the year, really into the summer, that we were experiencing excellent water quality. And it really wasn't until the late summer, the August, September, October timeframe when we didn't start to see those changes. And you all lived through that with us. We know that we had several major rainstorm events as well as 3 major hurricanes that influenced the region in that late summer, early fall time period. So I just want to contextualize what those storms kind of meant for water quality and how we measure it. And so the first thing I want to kind of say is I'm going to talk a little bit about our wastewater infrastructure and how that was able to handle and operate during those storms. But I want to put it in context of where the majority of the water is actually coming from in these peak kinds of extreme rainfall events and hurricanes. And the answer is it's coming through rivers. It's coming off of the surface water. Everything that you all are doing when you consider how we what the highest and best use is for the land in the watershed here influences water quality downstream in Tampa Bay. So when we look at the 4 major rivers, the Hillsborough, the Alafia, the Little Manatee, and the Manatee Rivers, over the course of those 3 major hurricanes, we really saw about 250 times more volume being pumped over the land and out those rivers into the bay than anything that I'll talk about on the wastewater side. So far and away, the thing that's really controlling and contributing to water quality conditions in those kinds of events is the surface water flow, stormwater, river discharge, and that's really how the landscape is designed to work. And so I just want to contextualize like that amount of water and what is moving there, and just how extreme and how much flow is pumping through all those systems to result in relatively, dark and turbid water down in the bay. But we know that our wastewater infrastructure also affects water quality, and we know that while we don't design our storm sewers to be combined systems, so we don't take our stormwater and we don't mingle it with our wastewater, we know that sometimes this infrastructure ages, it becomes leaky, and those two things actually do mix. Or we have facilities that are vulnerable because of where they're sited, and that means that in some instances those facilities needed to be shut down, and that resulted in sanitary sewer overflows to the bay. So if you look at the sanitary sewer overflows that we saw in Tampa Bay in 2024, you'll see virtually none. I mean, just very small quantities for the early part of the year. But then with the passage of Tropical Storm Debbie and Hurricanes Helene and Milton, that's when you really started to see like the cascading back-to-back kind of effects and how this really taxed our aging wastewater infrastructure. And these are color-coded by bay segment, because if y'all have lived in this region for a long time, there were some really significant events that happened in 2015 and 2016 where the city of St. Petersburg discharged quite a bit of partially treated or untreated wastewater to the bay. And so that moment was really powerful, I think, for the community. And there is a perception that St. Petersburg is the only one that has this problem. And I just want to call to your attention that that is, in fact, not the case. There is not a wastewater utility within our region that didn't struggle to accommodate the power outages and the amount of volume and water that was moving through their systems. Notably, some of the facilities in Manatee County, the city of Bradenton, struggled for a very long time discharging directly to the Manatee River. So these are challenges that we need to continue to invest in, because cumulatively in 2024, we're looking at upwards of 90 million gallons of partially treated or untreated wastewater going into the bay. With that is not only the nutrient load, like I talked about with respect to our management paradigm, but there's also a bacteriological or a human health component to that as well. So these are things we need to consider. But like I said, 90 million gallons, that's a lot. It's never okay for this to happen. But I do kind of want to put this in perspective. 2024, quite a bit more sanitary sewer overflows than what we've seen in years past. But I don't want you to get too hung up on 2017, because 2017 isn't really the baseline. I told you that the time where we had these significant events that really led to this reporting system that I'm pulling data from, that happened in 2015 and 2016. And in that time, we saw more than 200 million gallons of partially treated or untreated wastewater going into the bay. So while 90 million gallons is not good, and we don't want to see that, we want to tackle that improvement, I still think that we have made investments over that nearly decade-long period that have made our wastewater treatment infrastructure more resilient to these kind of events, especially since what we saw in 2014 was much more significant than what we saw in 2015 and 2016. We were just in matters of volume of water, it just doesn't really even compare. So we've made some investments, we've improved, we still have work to do. So the next part of how we work through this management paradigm is to measure how clear is the water. Is it clear enough for light to make it all the way to the bay bottom? And we do that using a measure of light penetration, where you take an instrument called a Secchi disc and you're putting it in there and you're basically seeing, when does the disc disappear? And is it far enough to be able to be visible all the way down at the bay bottom? And for each of the bay segments, we actually are seeing that water clarity is good. We would expect water is clear enough to support seagrass resources. In 2024, the exception is Lower Tampa Bay. And so as a result, for 2024, this is when we get to the big reveal of what the stoplight color is. Because Lower Tampa Bay exceeded both our chlorophyll targets and our light attenuation targets, so both of those things that we think might interfere with seagrass growth, wasn't quite hitting the mark for Lower Tampa Bay. We see that bay segment is colored in yellow, or is in a cautionary state, where the remaining bay segments are in green, because even though they saw too much algae associated primarily with the storms that went by, for the most part, the light conditions were such that water was clear enough to support seagrasses. And we have all of this in an open source dashboard. The link is here. You're welcome to dive in deeper to some of these things. But this also just kind of highlights that even when a bay segment is green, you can see individual stations are in the red, and that's where we're seeing some of these persistent algae blooms that are coming. So we try and distill it in a way that's simple, but I don't want you to just think about it in an oversimplified way because there's a lot more nuance that's going on here. And then, like I said, we're doing all of this for what? For seagrasses. Seagrasses are the foundation for a healthy bay. Not only are they stabilizing sediments, protecting us from wave energy, storing carbon, and they're really like the foundation of the food chain. If there's any anglers in the room, seagrasses are critical to about 80% of the recreational sport fish that people like to fish for fun and to feed their families. And so we have a couple different ways that we're measuring seagrass outcomes, and this is information that we gather from partners, including partners here from Hillsborough County that go out and measure seagrass at fixed sites all throughout the bay. And this is basically showing in all of the bay segments, with the exception of Old Tampa Bay, we're seeing increasing seagrass trends, and so that's a good thing. So the water clarity is sort of true. We're ground truthing it, and we're seeing seagrasses come back as well. That exception is Old Tampa Bay, where we've seen really profound seagrass loss. Almost all of the seagrass loss that we've experienced in Tampa Bay since 2018 has happened in that bay segment. And so there's more complex and confounding things that are going on there. But this is sort of our first pulse look at how we think seagrass is responding to the conditions that we're managing for. And that indication is good. We will verify that with aerial maps that are flown by the Water Management District. Later this month, on the 26th, the Water Management District is going to release the seagrass mapping results for all of the Springs Coast, so pretty much everything up on the west coast of Florida. And what we're expecting to see is a reversal of the trend of loss overall. Maybe some modest gains, but we're really keeping an eye on that Old Tampa Bay segment where those gains might be occurring based on what we've sort of ground truthed in the field. So stay tuned for more information on seagrass results. So the main things that I want you to take away from this talk is that we had a lot of adaptive capacity built into the bay, mostly because of these dry conditions, but we know that drought is not a management strategy. And just like drought is not a management strategy, we can't protect against hurricanes forever. We will have these kinds of things, so we need to make the requisite investments to build up that capacity so the bay can deal with shocks and stressors like hurricanes. These stoplight colors where we tell people how the bay is doing, it's more than just good, bad, okay. It's really corresponding to things like how much algae, how much nitrogen, how clear is the water. And there's a set of actions that are tied to each of those colors. So for things like Old Tampa Bay, where it's been in the yellow or in the red for quite some time, that's really letting us know that Old Tampa Bay is a marginal bay segment, and it doesn't just stop with being, it's red or it's yellow. It means that we need to act. There are investments that we need to make to get Old Tampa Bay back on track, whether it's addressing stormwater pollution through major flood control conveyances like Channel A and G or the Lake Tarpon Outfall Canal, making bridge modifications or causeway modifications to those major highways that traverse that bay segment, or continuing to invest in our wastewater infrastructure and additional nitrogen load reductions in that bay segment. That's what's going to happen for me to ever come back here and be able to say that Old Tampa Bay is in the green. It's not just going to happen by us monitoring it and reporting on it. So that was all the information that I wanted to share with you today. Thank you for inviting me and letting me speak with you all.
Thank you. All right. Did any of the commissioners have any questions, comments, or discussions? I had a quick question for you. I was wondering, you spoke a lot about Old Tampa Bay. I know they just opened up, at the conclusion, you just spoke about the causeway openings and allowing flow back and forth. I do a lot of data analysis, analytics, and mapping for the Water Institute. I work with Dr. Sean Landry very closely, so in my free time. But I was wondering if we're starting to see any positive movement from that area, from that opening up and allowing the water to free flow a little better even if only close to those areas that are open? I know obviously the further back parts still have a ways to go before they start to, improve, but are we starting to at least see things move in a better way in those areas?
So where that causeway cut is located on the eastern side of the Courtney Campbell, and there's actually pretty healthy and persistent seagrass meadows in that area. It's mostly haliduli, which is kind of an ephemeral or shoalgrass species, and I would say things look pretty good. On the east side of Tampa Bay, Old Tampa Bay, things look pretty good. There's quite lovely seagrass resources over there. So we do see some benefits there. It's a little bit hard to judge because most of the time where that opening was there, we saw system-wide and beyond system-wide, like throughout the entire Gulf Coast, losses that were observed over that time period. So there's a bit of a complicating factor there in making an analysis. But I would say that generally on that east side where you do have improved circulation, whether it's from an intervention like that or just from the natural flow of water, you see healthier and more stable seagrass meadows. If we want to see that, we also are going to need to string together those kinds of improvements on the west side of all of the causeways. And we need to be clear as a region how we measure the kinds of return on investment or the cost benefits for pursuing those kinds of projects, because a circulation project is not necessarily going to reduce the nitrogen load. So it's not fair to use that as the yardstick of how to figure out whether or not that's something we should do. But it could ultimately result in a salinity condition that is more conducive to or a temperature condition that's more conducive to seagrass resources. And you could see a bump up in the amount of seagrass acreage, which is the equivalent of a nitrogen load reduction. And so these are things that are like a little bit complicated, but I do think that the evidence we have suggests that that might be something worth pursuing on the west side for every single one of those land bridges that's impeding flow.
All right, and I had one more question. You spoke about tailpipe emissions settling on the water. I was wondering if there was any research or looks you guys did on heavy metals and things like that. I know on highways there's a lot of brake dust, right? Mm-hmm. People don't really talk about that. They automatically go to the tailpipe and try and kill the car. And I get it. I get it. But I'm just wondering the reality of walking down any road, you look in the side of the road there, and there's any number of rubbers and plastics and metals. And do we look at that in any way?
Yeah,
do we measure that?
There's two different data streams that we use. We also present on a benthic index, which I didn't share with you all today, but the EPC helps us collect benthic information, and in that has information about like heavy metals as well as like different critters that live in the muddy bottom. And so we can track that over time. And as you might suspect, those depositional areas, the upper bay segments like in Hillsborough Bay and Old Tampa Bay, certainly you see as hotspots for different chemicals, heavy metals, things like that. And then we've also invested in research both with USF as well as with Eckerd to look at the distribution of microplastics throughout the bay. And actually what you see is in areas like Old Tampa Bay, quite a bit of tire fragments constitute the microplastics that we observe in that portion of the bay. So I don't think it's not as like entrenched and systemic kind of monitoring program the way we do for water quality, say. Benthic is though. And we just don't tie like the benthic metals and things, the metals that we're seeing in the benthic index, we don't tie that to a particular source. Perhaps that's something that we could work on, developing further. But I do think that there's information out there on both of those things.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, Commissioner Soria.
One question. Since we were talking about tailpipe emissions,
Yeah.
Tampa Airport is one of the busiest airports in Florida now. And most of the aircrafts that arrive fly over the Tampa Bay all the time. Mm-hmm. Is that something we're accounting for as well?
I think that the most honest answer I could give you is no. We actually have a pretty gross estimates of air pollution. We did some really targeted studies back in the early 2000s called the Bay Area Regional Atmospheric Chemistry Experiment, where we looked and quantified those sources of atmospheric nitrogen pollution to the bay. But generally, on a year-to-year basis, the way that we estimate the nitrogen load pollution coming from coming to the Bay is using a regional station within the airshed out at Verna Wellfield, which is in Sarasota County. This is like in accordance with methodology that EPA, calls for, but we know it's a gross underestimate because based on that Brace study, we showed that really the 4 times more significant in terms of the nitrogen load reduction was coming from these kinds of mobile sources. Some of that could also be from the airport. So we don't have fine scale information like that. And that's really a priority research topic that I'm trying to advance over the next couple of years to get stations right there in Old Tampa Bay so we can really characterize some of these urban sources of atmospheric nitrogen pollution.
All right, thank you. Yeah, because aircrafts, like if you look at the aircraft path, they fly at lower altitude when they're coming for landing. And they actually burn more fuel in that last 2-3 minutes of approach, and it's all over the bay most of the time.
Yeah.
So, and just because to prevent noise from downtown, we come over the bay instead of going over the land. So it's one of those minute details might make a difference too.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Linkus.
I just wanted to say I thought this was a really interesting and informative presentation. I really like the way that you brought home this is not just a color coding, that there's a correspondence to actions, and I thought that you've really clearly presented the relationship between planning actions and the importance to our environment and the economy for the Bay. So I appreciate the work your organization's doing.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Not seeing any. We'll thank you for the information.
Appreciate you all as partners.
All right. And move on to our next agenda item, 3B, Tampa Bay Partnership Reports, Regional Competitiveness Report, and Beyond the Front Door, an in-depth look at housing affordability in Tampa Bay. And the presenter is Sarah Burgoyne. Okay.
Yes, indeed. Good afternoon. Obviously, not Sarah Burgoyne. It's Yasser Gonzalez, Planning Commission staff. But I would just say this is the first time Ms. Burgoyne will come in front of you, so we'd like to do a little introduction. And we'd like to also follow up on the comments Commissioner Linkus. All those tables they have at the Tampa Bay Study Program are open science. So, again, really excellent work is being done over there. So, again, following up with that excellent work, there's another, we like to introduce another organization that's doing excellent work. And some of you that have served some time here may recognize this item. We came to you 2023 with this a similar item with this regional competitiveness report, which Ms. Burgoyne is also going to be talking about one of our most persistent challenges, which is housing affordability. So she's going to be introducing some of that. There's also a study they did specifically for that. So again, what they do is they gather this, it's a Herculean task where they gather all these data sets and, bring in the MUMA College of Business, their experts, and in order to distill this information into actionable intelligence that, appointed, elected, and business leaders can use to push our Bay forward. And again, with the same theme of day-to-day actions that you take, where are we placed as a Bay, then they will take those actions, right? And then they will compare us to peer and near-peer regions. So Ms. Burgoyne is a new addition to the Tampa Bay Partnership. She hails from Nielsen, which is a behemoth in data analytics. So again, she's bringing that very tried and true hard-nosed approach to data analytics to the partnership, which again, following a great tradition of that over there. And she hails from the Midwest, where she actually went to school. She's an applied demographer, very involved not only in doing demographics work, but also in the professional community of demographers. So without further ado, here's Ms. Burgoyne.
Hello, good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you for having me. So the partnership is a coalition of the region's top employers who are working together to improve the lives of all Tampa Bay residents. We define Tampa Bay as 8 counties: Citrus, Hernando, Hillsborough, Manatee, Pasco, Pinellas, Polk, and Sarasota. And since this is the Hillsborough County Planning Commission, I will highlight data specific to the county when it's available. Last month, we unveiled our 2025 Regional Competitiveness Report at our State of the Region event. This is the 8th year that the partnership has produced the report, and I passed around hard copies to you. But you can also view the report online, as well as county-level data for the same indicators where it's available at stateoftheregion.com. The Regional Competitiveness Report compares Tampa Bay to 19 other metros across the country with similarities based on population, demographics, economic size, and presence of regional assets, such as ports, research universities, and professional sports teams. The Regional Competitiveness Report evaluates 5 drivers of our regional economy, including economic vitality, innovation, infrastructure, talent, and civic quality. The report has more than 65 indicators, and we hope that you guys can use this data to inform the work that you're doing. So let's dive into some of the findings from the 2025 report. I usually start this slide by saying the weather in Tampa Bay is beautiful, but it didn't really cooperate today. But even on a cloudy day, Tampa Bay has many attractive qualities, including strong economic opportunities, low crime, high quality of life, and a great deal of cultural and recreational establishments. Another area that helps our region stand out is our entrepreneurial spirit. The business establishment rate for Tampa Bay is about 14%, which is well above the national average. And for the 3rd year in a row, we hold 5th place in this indicator, underscoring that Tampa Bay is a great place to start a new venture. Tampa Bay continues to attract new residents, families, and businesses, and ranks number 1 against comparison communities for net migration for the 3rd year in a row. We're seeing a slightly slower rate of immigration, which is indicated in red on the slide, which is actually a good thing. That's helping us to better accommodate the rapid expansion. The data also indicate that immigration among young professionals has slowed more rapidly in Tampa Bay than in other metros across the country, and we think that this is due to a lack of affordability. This slide shows the county level data with Hillsborough in the light blue. Hillsborough had a slower rate of net immigration than most of the region's other counties at 1.12%. But like all the other counties, Hillsborough's net immigration, which is shown in the orange bar, second from the bottom, increased from 2023 to 2024 and then declined from 2024 to 2025. We're excited about the progress that we're seeing around Tampa Bay being reflected in the data. There were improvements in nearly all of the economic vitality metrics that we track. These are things that help us understand the quantity and quality of jobs within a region, the relative incomes that residents earn, the wealth that residents attain, and economic opportunities for the region's entrepreneurs. The region also saw progress in 9 of the 12 civic quality indicators, which track the affordability of a region, the health and safety of citizens, and the recreational opportunities that impact quality of life. We're also seeing improvements in our education indicators. Overall, educational attainment rates have increased across associate's, bachelor's, and graduate degrees, meaning that our region is becoming more highly educated. A large portion of that is due to rising educational attainments of in-migrants to the area, which we refer to as brain gain. So there's opportunity in the area to encourage more of our youth to pursue post-secondary education locally. At the early end of the learning pipeline, we see improvements in in all 3 of our early learning indicators. There's been a lot of efforts in the Tampa Bay area related to early childhood education, and we're really seeing that that's paying off. So enrollment among 3 and 4-year-olds increased by 6.5%. Kindergarten readiness rates improved by nearly 2%. And I want to draw your attention to the kindergarten reading levels. I'm sorry, not kindergarten, 3rd grade reading levels. And this is a message that you'll hear the partnership repeat because this is such a critical metric. Leading up to 3rd grade, children are learning to read, and after 3rd grade, children read to learn. We can also celebrate improved rates of disconnected youth in the region, defined as those aged 16 to 24 who are not working nor in school. The half percentage point improvement translates to 7,700 fewer disengaged youth than in 2018 when we first started producing this report. Even though we're seeing improvement, I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that nearly 1 in 10 of the region's youth are still struggling to find a path forward. So there's clearly more work to be done for our young residents. Now I'm going to switch to some of our affordability indicators. The data show a slight decline in the share of income spent on housing and transportation. In 2024, residents were spending 57 cents of every dollar on housing and transportation, and that decreased to 55 cents of every dollar in 2025. The region as a whole is seeing a reduction in the share of income being spent on housing. Residents are spending 41% of their income on housing, which is down from 43% last year. However, at the county level, housing expenditures increased in Hillsborough, Manatee, and Sarasota counties from 2024 to 2025. But overall, the 2025 data highlight the link between housing affordability and transportation. We see that residents are moving further away from the urban core in pursuit of more affordable housing. And that's resulted in nearly 35,000 additional people commuting an hour or more for work each day, which takes the total number to 200,000 residents commuting for an hour plus. Wages are another factor related to Tampa Bay's affordability. Average wages in the region increased by about $2,500 across sectors between 2024 and 2025. And despite this increase, Tampa Bay remains in 18th position and is well below the national average. Our rank also held steady for average wage among service sector workers, who only saw a year-over-year increase of around $900. Looking at average wage data for individual counties, you can see that Hillsborough County is the highest at $71,573, and it's the only county in Tampa Bay that is above the Florida average. You can see in the top orange bar that Tampa Bay had average wage increases from 2023 to 2025 of $7,000. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about our infrastructure indicators. You can see by the color coding on this slide that we're sort of all over the place here in Tampa Bay. The annual hours and congestion fell slightly, but overall commute times are getting worse for Tampa Bay residents. And as I mentioned earlier, this is likely due to housing affordability concerns that have pushed residents further out. We do see increases in transit supply and demand, and our pedestrian and cyclist fatality rate improved by about 1 fatality per 100,000 residents. But you can see that we're still much higher than the national average, and ideally you would want that number to be 0. Tampa Bay's walkability score remained the same from 2024 to 2025. That's why it's in black instead of red or green. And our rank also remained the same year over year. In terms of pavement conditions, our rank plummeted from 6th to 16th. And these data are a little bit old, but driving around, I can tell you it hasn't gotten better. And South Hillsborough in particular is bad. I say a little prayer for my car when I get on 301 and hope for the best. I'll wrap up the regional competitiveness report portion of my presentation with indicators of labor force participation and the unemployment rate. Labor force participation in Tampa Bay improved by 1% last year, but is still quite low, less than 79%. And that keeps us in 20th place. And we've been in 20th place for the entire 8 years that we produced this report. And so because our region has a lot of early retirees, we're looking to add another indicator to the report that's for ages 25 to 54, which is the prime age workers that'll hopefully show us at a better position than 20th. Our unemployment rate increased slightly year over year, which is never a good thing. We want to be able to employ all residents who are actively seeking employment in the region. So this is an area where targeted career service programs and upskilling will bring improvements to the region as a whole. Data from our regional competitiveness report help guide the partnership's research and advocacy efforts. So for the past several years, we've been really focused on transportation and housing, which we refer to as priorities 1A and 1B. And we also have been focused on the region's talent pipeline. Last year, we received a grant from the Duke Energy Foundation to conduct our Beyond the Front Door study of housing affordability. So between January and June of 2024, the partnership interviewed more than 130 stakeholders from industry, government, and nonprofit sectors, as well as housing development leaders, business leaders, and Tampa Bay residents who themselves are experiencing housing affordability concerns. A concerted effort was made to introduce strong and balanced representation from Hillsborough, Pasco, and Pinellas counties, which were the focus of this study. Tampa Bay's housing affordability has been heavily impacted the last 5 years by regional growth. The Tri-County region averaged 130 new residents per day in 2023, with 47 of those moving to Hillsborough County each day. So a recurring theme of my presentation is that residents are moving out of the urban core in pursuit of more affordable housing, and migration to our outlying counties is transforming the workforce, culture, and demographics of our community. More than 259,000 residents are estimated to commute across Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough County lines for work each year. I'll reiterate that as housing costs continue to rise, many residents find themselves moving away from the urban core in pursuit of more affordable housing. To quote one study participant, the decision to move further from the urban core is often about maximizing value, getting more space or better amenities for the same money. However, this displacement introduces new challenges, primarily in the form of extended commute times and inadequate public transportation, which together exacerbate the economic strain on individuals and families. Numerous interviewees cautioned that longer commutes could translate to quality of life concerns, such as additional stress and less time spent with loved ones. A common theme from the interviews was Pinellas County losing workers to Pasco County, where there are lower housing costs. And not only are the people moving farther out, but some jobs are too. And then interviewees in Pasco County were frequently commenting that workers were being forced to live even further out in Citrus and Hernando counties. And so again, we're seeing more and more people that are commuting for an hour or more, sometimes in each direction, which is impacting quality of life and well-being. Manatee County has seen explosive growth, particularly in migration of young adults into the area at a rate of nearly 10% in 2024. So it's not just Hillsborough, Pasco, Pinellas that need infrastructure, that need to invest in infrastructure, but all 8 counties are seeing that need at this point. Ultimately, the narrative emerging from these interviews underscores the need for an integrated approach to housing and transportation planning for the Tampa Bay region. Addressing housing affordability without simultaneously improving transportation infrastructure just perpetuates the cycle of displacement and extended commute times. And conversely, investing in transportation without considering the location and affordability of housing will limit the effectiveness of these improvements. Residents and workforce participants don't see municipal boundaries when they're pursuing work and affordable housing. you're probably sick of me saying by now, but the overarching theme here is the interconnection between housing and transportation. More than half of the participants in the study who were interviewed about housing affordability gave an unprompted response that addressing transportation is imperative when addressing housing affordability. And nearly half of those interviewed took it a step further, saying that transportation costs and commute times impact their overall well-being. So it's clear that Tampa Bay needs a multifaceted approach and cohesive strategy to address housing affordability and transportation. I don't have the time to review the entire 56-page report, so I'd encourage you to go to our website to download the report and specifically focus on the sections around transit-oriented development, land use, and zoning incentives. So I'll open it up to questions, but take it easy on me because I've only been at the partnership less than 2 months. So,
All right, thank you very much for the information. Are there any questions or discussion items from the commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Bowden.
I had one question. In one of your areas, you talked about the in-migration rate, age 25 to 34.
Yes.
And you said affordability, and I'm thinking it's probably you're talking about housing.
Yes.
Do you actually look at transportation as mass transit also? Because my experience in different cities, that age group they don't even have a driver's license. So, that would be one deterrent.
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. So we don't have data to directly support that, but I think it's a very reasonable assumption.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Commissioner Cardenas, go ahead.
Yeah, I think last time
Mike.
There you go. I think last time we went through this, that youth that was missing was larger. Is there any programs is there things specifically that were done between then and now to help to make that difference?
Absolutely. There are a lot of community programs that we think are helping that. So the LEAP program, certainly. A lot of work is being done by the Boys and Girls Club of the Suncoast and Tampa Bay, and those organizations have recently merged, actually using data from the Regional Competitiveness Report. They identified that they thought that they could be more helpful together, and actually because we report up through ages 24 through disconnected youth, and so now nationally the Boys and Girls Club has extended their upper age limit to match that. So it's pretty exciting for us in the data. But yes, those are some of the programs. Also, there's some work being done by United Way Suncoast. And so just a lot of community efforts really focused on the 16 to 24-year-old population.
All right. I just wanted to say for my part, I've been on this commission for many, many years now, so I've seen these reports for many, many years, and I noticed instantly when you put up that first map of our comparison regions, how much more sensical, I guess, would be my word, that the regions you all selected are. So I wanted to commend you all on that, and also for focusing a lot of the information on Hillsborough County. I remember way back in the day when I first got on the Planning Commission, that was one of the big things that a lot of commissioners had problems with. The regions that were selected were these kind of weird places in California and some other weird places. So it was really, good to see that map and to know that we're being compared to very similar places. So, and again, also that focus on bringing things down to a bite-sized scale for us here in Hillsborough County, I think was really well done by you all. So I just wanted to commend you on that.
Thank you. We appreciate that feedback.
All right. Any other? Commissioner Linkus?
And I'll just also commend this report. It's so well organized. I really love the sort of way that you color code the metrics and make that really clear. And I think it's just such important work that you're doing this comparison across all of the counties that play into the economic way that this area works and its unique contribution. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Any other comments or questions from the commissioners? Not seeing any. Well, thank you for the information.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon.
You too. And we will move on to our next agenda item. Item number 4, adoption of proposed four-year 26, four-year 27 budgets. And the presenter is Melissa Zornita.
All right. Good afternoon. Melissa Zornita, Executive Director. The item before you is action on our FY 26-27 budget. This is the adoption of the 2-year budget. We are proposing one decision unit to increase our operating budget by $17,400 to address 4 areas in which we are seeing increase in costs due to inflation and other items. Those items are other contractual services that covers our fellowship with the University of South Florida, other rentals, which covers the rental of schools and other facilities that we use for community meetings, mileage, which we are anticipating having additional reimbursement of staff for mileage because we're consolidating from having 3 agency vehicles down to 2 vehicles, which will be a cost savings on the vehicles, but we'll need to reimburse more staff for mileage probably. And then an increase in training by $2,500. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and Amber Simmons and Felicia Pulliam are here to help me if you have any tough questions. Thanks.
All right. Were there any, wait, this is for action, right?
Yes.
Yeah, no one signed up for the public comment on this one, so I will turn it over to the commissioners for any questions, comments, or discussion items on this budget. Not seeing a lot of excitement, and then I will go on ahead and close the public comment on this one and open it up to the commissioners for motions on this item. Commissioner Buzza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move move forward and approve the proposed 26-27 budget.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Buzza, a second to that motion by Commissioner Kona. Are there any questions, comments from the commissioners before we take our vote? Not seeing any, then we'll all signify their agreement by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have item 5A, Port Tampa Bay Standard Work Permit Application number 23-068-5440 West Tyson Avenue, and the presenter is Mr. Sean College.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Sean College with Planning Commission staff. This is Tampa Port Authority Standard Work Permit number 23-068-5440 West Tyson Avenue. The purpose of this item is for a consistency determination with the City of Tampa Comprehensive Plan. This application, proposed project, was transmitted to the Planning Commission by Port Tampa Bay with a request for a consistency determination, and that is per chapters 95-488 and 97-351 laws of Florida. On your screen now is the location of this proposed project. It is on the South Tampa Peninsula on the west side, just south of the Gandy Bridge. And this picture shows you more specifically where it's located. This is the project area. Existing conditions at the site, on your screen is a photo of the site. It is an older industrial shipping area, no longer being used for industrial shipping. Because it was a shipping area, there are already adequate depths. There are no natural shorelines in this area. There's a small area of mangrove and some sporadic seagrasses in the area. That's in the foreground of the photo, but it is outside of the project area itself, which is in the which is further in the distance of the photo on your screen. The upland area is being developed for residential use, so this would be a complementary recreational boating facility, and there is generally a need for recreational boating facilities in the Tampa Bay area. Of course, we have great population growth. The proposed project that's being proposed, it is construction of 13,512 square foot floating and fixed multi-slip docking facility, 33 boat lifts, 5 boat slips, wet slips that is. There would be finger piers where these slips would be constructed, 6 floating personal watercraft docks with a total of 12 personal watercraft slips, and 1 floating kayak launch. Considerations for consistency with the City of Tampa Comprehensive Plan. This is an existing shipping area. We're not going into a pristine natural area, which we would want to avoid. There's already adequate depths for this use. It is proposed that there would be educational signage on manatees, seagrasses, natural resources as part of this project. It does comply with the city's marina siting guidelines that are in the comprehensive plan. And there are no significant adverse environmental impacts expected from this project. It adds needed boating facilities and the commensurate recreational benefit to the quality of life of residents. And specifically, we find it consistent with coastal management policies 1.6.3, 1.6.6, and 1.6.7. With those considerations, staff has recommended you issue the resolution in your packet with the recommendation that it is found consistent with the City of Tampa Comprehensive Plan. And that concludes my presentation. There is a representative of the applicant available for your questions as well.
Thank you. All right. They didn't have a presentation, did they? No.
They indicated they were here for questions and don't
Okay.
have a presentation.
All right. We had no one sign up in the public comment for this one, so I will turn it over to the commissioners for questions, comments on this one. Not seeing any, then I will go ahead and close the public comment on this item and open it up to motions from the commissioners. Commissioner Soria.
I'd like to recommend that we find City of Tampa, Port Tampa Bay Standard Work Permit Application Number 23-068 5440 West Tyson Avenue consistent.
All right. Is there a second out there?
Second.
All right. We have a motion of consistency, a second by Commissioner Soria, a second to that motion by Commissioner Linkus. Are there any questions, comments, or discussions from the commissioners before we take our vote? Not seeing any, then we'll all signify their agreement by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Next up, we have a ton of briefings, it looks like. So we will start with 6A, HCCPA 25-09, Comprehensive Plan Text Amendment, Valrico Community Plan, and the presenter is Andrea Papandrew. And Marion Betty.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Andrea Papandrew, Planning Commission staff. Miriam Betty is a USF Fellow with the Planning Commission, and she's going to present the first couple slides today.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Miriam Betty, Planning Commission Fellow, presenting HCCPA 2509, briefing for the Valrico Community Plan. This is a publicly initiated amendment. On March 1st, 2023, the BOCC requested staff to initiate the process to create the Valrico Community Plan. If adopted, it will be the 23rd Community Plan to be created and adopted into the livable community elements of the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. The plan establishes a vision for Valrico. It has 4 goals and multiple strategies for achieving the goals. The map on the screen shows the Valrico Community Plan boundary when staff started the process in 2023. It shows the county's Valrico Community Planning area. Staff went through community engagements, which I'm going to talk about next. Finally, a more defined updated map is at the end of the presentation. The process began in spring of 2023 with the BOCC's initial request. Staff started community-wide meetings in summer of 2023. Throughout 2023 and 2024, the work continued with sustained community engagement and data collection. Staff drafted the community plan, which was then presented to community for feedback in fall of 2024. Staff conducted activities like a vision survey, a boundary map, and SWOT analysis, and in-person office hours throughout the community plan. These helped staff gather data and establish existing conditions in Valrico. Final in-person office hours were held in February of 2025. We are currently at the amendments process as part of the January 2025 cycle, and we will be back before the Planning Commission for a public hearing on April 14th. To keep community members engaged, staff organized community-wide meetings and in-person office hours. Staff also held 4 online surveys and launched a project webpage, which was updated regularly with project information. Staff was requested by 3 community groups to make 3 presentations. Additional information about our engagement process is in the non-adopted background report in your packet. I'm going to hand it off to Andrea to finish the presentation. Thank you.
Again, Andrea Papandrew, Planning Commission staff. So as Miriam mentioned, the creation of the Valrico Community Plan involved numerous public engagement meetings and methods, and the results of that engagement was the creation of 4 main goals for the Valrico Community Plan. Goal 1 is on infrastructure, timely provision and maintenance of public facilities and infrastructure. Goal 2 is development, enhance overall character of the area through compatible land use and design. Goal 3 on mobility, safe connections for all modes of travel between neighborhoods, commercial areas, and community facilities. And Goal 4 is environment and recreation, preservation, conservation, and restoration of natural areas, parks, and recreation areas. So staff will be back in April for the public hearing and provide additional details on the many strategies that comprise these 4 goals. But the entire draft is in your packets. And then this is the proposed boundary for the Valrico Community Plan. So the boundary goes north to Sydney Road and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, east to Dover Road, south of Lithia Pinecrest Road, and west over to Valrico Road and Bell Shoals Road. So I'm going to go ahead and put that up there. So the black and white map at the beginning of the PowerPoint shows the County Valrico Planning Area boundaries. Combined with the Valrico zip codes was the starting point for the proposed community plan boundaries, but the map before you was finalized based on community meeting feedback. Part of that feedback was the brown shaded area on the map, which are properties that are proposed to be within the Valrico Community Plan that are already in the Brandon Community Plan boundary. So this was requested by residents of the area, and staff's research showed that these properties have an existing Valrico zip code. The shaded area in purple corresponds to a citizen requested boundary change. So this was brought up late in the planning process, and a public comment has been sent to the Board of County Commissioners requesting to expand the Valrico Community Plan boundary to John Moore Road, south of Bloomingdale Avenue, to align with the Bloomingdale Special Tax District. So staff will be presenting this request to the board at their workshop on Wednesday. And just for clarity, the Energy Industrial Park outlined in blue is not part of the Valrico Community Plan to the east. So that's it for this briefing. Myself and Miriam are available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any questions, comments from the commissioners on this one? Not seeing any lights, then we will thank you for the information, and we will move on to our next agenda item. Item number, what are we on? 6B, HCCPA 24-33, Comprehensive Plan Text Amendment 1620, South Dover Road, Urban Service Area Expansion, and the presenter is Jillian Massey.
Good afternoon. Jillian Massey with Planning Commission staff. And as mentioned, I'll be briefing on HCCPA 24-33, which is a proposed urban service area expansion at 1620 South Dover Road. This request is a privately initiated text amendment to expand the urban service area to include approximately 31.83 acres that is currently designated as residential 1. There is an associated proposed map amendment, HCCPA 24-34, to change the designation to residential 4, which I will present following this. The location of this plan amendment request is in the eastern portion of the county. It was originally submitted as part of the July 2024 cycle and continued to this January cycle after initial consideration by the board. It is in the rural area and not within the limits of a community plan. This is an aerial photo of the site outlined in pink. The blue line indicates the existing urban service area boundary. The site is located on the east side of South Dover Road, south of State Road 60 and north of Durant Road. Surrounding uses mainly include single-family residential to the east, west, and south, and the Energy Industrial Park designated property is located directly to the north and northeast of the site. If the expansion were to be approved, the neighborhood directly to the west would remain in the rural area, and you can see kind of the enclave it may create to the west there. It would be surrounded by the urban service area. As mentioned, the impact of this amendment would bring 31.83 acres that are currently designated as residential 1 into the urban service area,
This would require at a minimum connection to public water and sewer. And that concludes the briefing on this part of the application.
Well, that was lightning fast. Are there any questions or comments from the commissioners? I have a quick question. I'm wondering, because that's going to make a little donut of non-urban service area there. Is that even feasible? How does that, do we have any of those where there's just a donut of non-urban service area completely surrounded by urban service area?
So we don't have anything like that, but there's nothing in the plan that says you can't.
Right. Would we be looking at, because obviously this is just a presentation briefing, it's going to come back before us later. Would part of our review be looking at the possibility of bringing that area into the urban service area, or is that not, are we just not touching urban service area things after what happened last time? And you can be honest, I'm just asking the question.
I mean, there are the area, can you go back to the map?
Yes.
Because the area that is left out, the hole in the donut, so to speak, is a subdivision of a number of property owners. So it would take staff some time to reach out and contact all of those folks. We certainly could not do that by next month.
Right.
And the timeline that the applicant for this amendment is on.
Okay.
Yes, if the Board of County Commissioners ultimately approved this expansion of the urban service area, we could come back and publicly initiate an amendment to clean that up. But I don't think we could do anything to rectify it. We have talked to the applicant of this amendment and asked them if they needed to, if they had to kind of close it off, if they couldn't leave, kind of like they do with annexations in Plant City, leave part of it so that there was still a connection to the rural area for that. They wanted to bring in their entire property into the urban service area, so they are sticking with their entire property coming in. I mean, there's nothing that keeps them from doing that in our policies.
Right.
So
I was just more wondering about that
just
piece
looks
outside.
weird.
Yeah, it looks kind of funny. Let me ask
Yeah.
you a question now that we have this map up. It looks like that subdivision is one subdivision. Am I wrong, or are they different across, what is that, South Dover Road there? Because it looks like this road kind of continues right in, and that's the same subdivision, but one's in and one's out. No?
I
think
believe it's just the one.
Okay.
It's the Dover Woods subdivision.
Okay. Okay. All right. Just
But
asking
I can
Commissioner
confirm
Kona.
that.
Do we know how close they are to water and sewer?
I believe that there is water and sewer on South Dover Road because the urban service area is directly across the street
Okay.
to the west.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Not seeing any. Well, thank you for the information. And we will go on to our next item, 6C, HCCPA 24-34, Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment, 1620 South Dover Road. And the presenter is Jillian Massey.
Great. Again, so this is Jillian Massey with your Planning Commission staff, and I'll be briefing on HCCPA 24-34, Associated Map Amendment at 1620 South Dover Road. So this request is a privately initiated small-scale map amendment proposing to change approximately 31.83 acres in the Residential 1 designation to Residential 4. As mentioned, it's in the eastern part of the county, in the rural area, and not part of a community plan. We already know the location or familiar with it. It's on the east side of South Dover Road, south of State Road 60 and north of Durant Road, and that the industrial park, Energy Industrial Park designated area is directly to the north and northeast of the site. The adopted future land use of the property is currently Residential 1, which allows for consideration of low-density residential, rural-scale neighborhood commercial, office, and multi-purpose projects, which would be subject to locational criteria. Surrounding land use categories include Residential 1 to the east, Residential 4 to the south and to the west, and the Energy Industrial Park to the north and northeast. And as you can see, that brighter yellow color is some of the residential 6 further to the northwest. The request is to change the site to residential 4, which allows for low-density residential at 4 dwelling units per gross acre. And it also still allows for neighborhood commercial office uses and multipurpose projects, subject to the locational criteria. This slide outlines the potential impacts of the requested land use change. Currently under the residential 1, the site could be considered for up to 31 dwelling units and approximately 350,000 square feet of non-residential development, subject to locational criteria. Excuse me. The change to residential 4 increases that potential density to 127 dwelling units, but the non-residential intensity remains the same. Therefore, overall, the proposed amendment would ultimately just allow for an increase in potential density. And that concludes this briefing.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions or discussion items from the commissioners? Not seeing any, then we'll thank you, and we will move on to our next agenda item, 6D, HCCPA 25-01, Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment, 2002 West Highway 60, and the presenter is Tyreek Royal.
Good afternoon, Tyreek Royal, Planning Commission staff, and today I'll be briefing HCCPA 2501 and 2002 West 60 Highway. This request is privately initiated small-scale map amendment with approximately 9.5 acres. The request is to change the land use designation from Res 1 to OC 20. The location of the site is in the eastern portion of the unincorporated Hillsborough County. It's a part of the January 2025 cycle in the rural area in the wellhead protection area, and is not located within the limits of a community plan. This is an aerial photo of the site outlined here in pink. It is located north of State Road 60 and west of State Road 60 West and south of Mud Lake Road. Surrounding uses include agricultural uses to the west and south, single-family uses to the north, and light commercial uses to the east. The site is in the Res 1 future land use category. It allows for the consideration of agricultural, farms, ranches, residential, neighborhood commercial, office, and multi-purpose projects. Commercial uses are subject to locational criteria. The site is approximately 1.7 miles from the urban service area. The applicant is requesting to change the future land use category from agricultural 1.5 to office commercial 20. The OC 20 allows for consideration of community commercial type uses, office uses, mixed use development, and compatible residential uses. Agricultural uses may be permitted pursuant to the policies of the agricultural objective areas of the future land use section. The change from Res 1 to OC 20 would allow for an increase in development by allowing significantly higher residential density and greater commercial intensity. The density of 1 dwelling unit per gross acre would increase to 20 dwelling units per gross acre. The commercial intensity would increase from a 0.25 FAR or a maximum of 310,000 square feet. Anything above a 0.35 FAR must be for office or residential support uses and not retail. And this concludes my briefing. I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. All right, are there any questions, comments, discussions from the commissioners? Not seeing any, we'll thank you for the information. And we will move on to our next agenda item, 6E, HCCPA 25-02, Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment, 115 South 78th Street and 7749 East Adamo Drive. And the presenter is Willow, and I might get this wrong.
Mickey.
Mickey, okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Willow Mickey with your Planning Commission staff. I will be briefing HCCPA 25-02. Which is at 115 South 78th Street and 7749 East Adamo Drive. This request is a privately initiated small-scale map amendment. It is made up of 2 parcels that total approximately 4.18 acres. The request is to change the land use designation of these parcels from residential 12 to light industrial planned. This plan amendment is part of the January 2025 cycle, located in the urban service area, and is within the limits of the Greater Palm River Community Plan, and it is in the coastal high hazard area. This is an aerial photo of the site outlined here in pink. It is located north of Selman Expressway, south of East Adamo Drive, and west of South 78th Street. Within the vicinity of the site, there is heavy commercial and light commercial uses to the north, the Selman Expressway ramp to the east, the Selman Expressway to the south, and the Tampa Bypass Canal to the west. The site is in the residential 12 land use category. It allows for the consideration of agricultural, residential, neighborhood commercial, office uses, multi-purpose projects, and mixed-use development. Surrounding land use categories include light industrial plans to the north and east. There's residential 12 and residential 9 to the south of the Selman Expressway. On the west side of the Tampa Bypass Canal, there is heavy industrial, and that is in the city of Tampa. The request is to change the site to light industrial planned, which allows for the consideration of uses such as agricultural, light industrial uses such as processing, manufacturing, recycling, and storage of materials as the predominant uses, including support offices, warehousing, and retail uses. No residential is allowed under this category. This slide outlines the potential impacts of the requested land use change. Currently under residential 12, the site can be considered for up to 50 dwelling units or approximately 91,040 square feet of non-residential. The change to light industrial planned would not allow for the consideration of residential uses, but would allow for up to approximately 136,560 square feet of non-residential uses. The proposed amendment will result in the potential increase in commercial intensity and the introduction of industrial uses, and would eliminate the potential for residential development. This concludes the briefing on this item, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any questions, comments, discussion items? Commissioners, not seeing any. Well, thank you for the information and move on to our next agenda item. 6F, HCCPA 25-03, Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment, Lutz Lake Fern Road, and the presenter is Krista Kelly.
Thank you. Krista Kelly, Planning Commission staff. Good afternoon. I'm presenting HCCPA 2503. This area is located adjacent to the Lutz Lake Fern Road. This is a map amendment, a future land use map amendment. This is a privately initiated amendment. The property or the project site is approximately 308 acres. The applicant is requesting a change from agricultural rural 1 to 5 to residential 4. The red star on this location map indicates the location of the subject site in the northernmost portion of the county. I'd like to point out at this point that it is a companion amendment with HCCPA 2504. The companion amendment seeks to expand the urban service area to include this amendment site. While 2503 and 2504 are interrelated, they will be presented as separate amendments. So back to HCCPA 2503, the 300 acre approximate site abuts the Pasco County boundary to the north and extends south to the Lutz Lake Fern Road, approximately a quarter mile west of the Suncoast Parkway interchange. The majority of the subject site is in the rural area on the north side of Lutz Lake Fern. Approximately 14 acres are on the south side of the road and are within the urban service area. The subject site is also within the area covered by the Keystone Odessa Community Plan. This area shows the site outlined in pink. As you can see, it's vacant. The property appraiser indicates it's used for agricultural purposes, as well as you'll see a borrow pit activity in the northwest corner of the property. To the west and south of the site, you see the area is predominantly developed with a rural residential development pattern. To the south, there are environmental lands. You see the Upper Tampa Bay Trail, and there also is a large watershed area. Then you see the Suncoast Parkway to the east, which creates kind of a transitional boundary between the subject site and the western rural area to the eastern side, which becomes transitional and reflects a suburban scale development pattern with two major planned developments including Cheval and Valorusa, as you can see up in this area. In addition, there's a major high school, the Steinbrenner High School, and then an elementary school adjacent to it just to the east. Again, to the south, you see a mixture of large lots and environmental lands, and then suburban scale subdivisions. This is the adopted future land use map showing it currently as agricultural rural 1 to 5. As you see to the west, the area is designated residential 1, reflecting the rural residential development pattern, as well as to the east is designated residential 1 and residential 2, the brighter yellow area. This teal color is natural preservation, again reflecting the watershed area. Here the site is shown as proposed as residential 4. The only other residential 4 in this area, as you see, is quite a bit south of the site in this area. The proposed amendment, currently the site would allow 61 dwelling units and approximately 3.3 million square feet of non-residential use. If the amendment were approved to change to residential 4, approximately 1,235 dwelling units could be considered. The floor area ratio does not change, and therefore the square footage does not change. In summary, the proposed amendment would result in an increase of 1,174 dwelling units and allow for suburban scale residential development. The FAR would remain the same. However, the potential non-residential square footage would be subject to rural locational criteria that is determined at the rezoning stage. That concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions you have.
All right. Are there any questions or comments, discussion items from the commissioners? Not seeing any. I have a general question, but I could have waited till the next one. It seems weird that why does this one come before the next one? How come we didn't do the urban service area and then do the R4?
I think they're just in numerical order.
That
for
way,
the,
okay.
the hearing, we can put them in the other order
Okay.
so that you take action on the expansion first.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will move on to our next agenda item, 6G, HCCPA 25-04, Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment, Lutz Lake Fern Road, Urban Service Area Expansion. Presenter is Unica Mills.
Good afternoon, Unica Mills Planning Commission staff. I'm here to present HCCPA 2504, Lutz Lake Fern Road Urban Service Area Expansion. This is a privately initiated plan amendment. It's a map amendment. Since the recently new procedures manual was adopted, urban service area requests are considered map amendments now. It's approximately 295.6 acres in size. And again, this would be an expansion of those possibly 295 acres. And as Krista mentioned, this amendment is associated with HCCPA 2503. Here's a locator map. The site is located within the rural area. It's also located within the Keystone Odessa Community Planning Area. The site, more specifically, is located on the north side of Lutz Lake Fern Road, east of Berry Acre Trails, south of the Pasco County line, and again, associated with 25-03. Here is an aerial of the subject site. Again, from the aerial, you'll see large lot single-family residential located in the immediate area. The blue line represents the location of the urban service area boundary. You'll see that along Berry Acre Trails and then to your east along Cypress Ridge Road. The impacts from this request, if the amendment were to be approved, again, there would be 295 acres that would move into the urban service area, and at a minimum, there would be a requirement of a connection to public water and sewer. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the commissioners? I have just one, and one suggestion also for you, Krista. When it comes back through, could we see what's going on? I know that's not our purview in Pasco County, but I think as a region, we have to start thinking a little bit smarter, especially with the vet being right there, Veterans Expressway, that runs you right into Pasco County. I'm just curious as to what they're doing up there. Again, I know that's not our purview, and they do what they want to do, and we have to do what we do here, but I'd like to at least know so we're not doing anything too crazy, up there. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Are there any? Yes, Commissioner Kona.
Yeah, am I correct that all of the briefings that we're hearing today will be on one public hearing at our?
Yes.
Okay.
And you have to be here for it, Commissioner Kona. All right. Are there any other questions or comments from the commissioners? All right. Then we'll thank you for the information and move on to our next agenda item. 6H, HCCPA 25-05, Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment, 6920 East Chelsea Street, and the presenter is Willow Mickey.
Good afternoon. I'm Willow Mickey with your Planning Commission staff. I will be briefing HCCPA 2505, which is at 6920 East Chelsea Street. This request is a privately initiated small-scale map amendment. It is made up of one parcel that totals approximately 3.74 acres. The request is to change the land use designation of these parcels from residential 6 to light industrial planned. This plan amendment is part of the January 2025 cycle. It is located in the urban service area and is within the limits of East Lake Orient Park Community Plan. This is an aerial photo of the site outlined in pink. It is located north of East Chelsea Street and is southeast of I-4. Within the vicinity of the site, there is light commercial uses to the west and single-family uses to the east. Interstate 4 is to the north, and across East Chelsea Street to the south, there is public, quasi-public, and heavy commercial uses. The site is in the residential 6 land use category. It allows for the consideration of agricultural, residential, neighborhood commercial, office uses, multi-purpose projects, and mixed-use development. Surrounding land use categories include residential 6 to the east, west, and north across Interstate 4. There is research, corporate park, light industrial planned, and office commercial 20 uses to the south. The request is to change the site to light industrial planned, which allows for the consideration of uses such as agricultural, light industrial uses such as processing, manufacturing, recycling, and storage of materials as the predominant uses, including support offices, warehousing, and retail uses. No residential is allowed under this category. This slide outlines the potential impacts of the requested land use change. Currently, under residential 6, the site can be considered for up to 22 dwelling units, or approximately 40,728 square feet of non-residential uses. The change to light industrial planned would not allow for the consideration of residential uses, but would allow for up to approximately 122,185 square feet of non-residential uses. The proposed amendment will result in the potential increase in commercial intensity and the introduction of industrial uses. It would eliminate the potential for residential development. This concludes the briefing on this item, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments from the commissioners? Not seeing any. Well, thank you for the information, and we will move on to our next agenda item, 6I, HCCPA 25-07, Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment, 16410 Baum Waimama Road, and the presenter is Alexis Myers.
Hey, good afternoon, Commissioners. Alexis Myers, Planning Commission staff. I'm here to present HCCPA 2507, located at 16410 Baum Waimama Road. This is a privately initiated map amendment that is large in scale and approximately 470.9 acres. The applicant is requesting to change the future land use designation from agricultural 1 to 5 to residential 4. This is the general location map. This amendment is associated with HCCPA 2508 to expand the urban service area. It is in the rural area and within the limits of the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Community Plan. It is located north of State Road 674 and east of Baum Waimama Road. Here is an aerial of the site. The site is outlined in pink, and the blue line indicates the urban service area boundary. The site currently has agricultural, single-family uses, and vacant land. The site also has wetlands and is in the FEMA flood zone AE. Agriculture is to the east, west, and north, while there is single-family uses to the north, south, and east, and further west in the urban service area. There's also vacant land to the north, south, and east, and natural preservation is directly west. Lastly, there are public, quasi-public institution uses to the south and west. Currently, the future land use designation is agricultural rural 1 to 5. The agricultural rural 1 to 5 category allows 1 dwelling unit per 5 gross acres and a maximum floor area ratio of 0.25. This designation allows for the consideration of farms, ranches, feedlots, residential, neighborhood commercial, office, industrial uses related to agricultural uses, and mining-related activities. Other future land use categories shown in this map include Waimama Village Residential 2, and natural preservation to the west and south, and agricultural 1 to 10 to the east. The applicant is proposing to amend the future land use category to residential 4. The residential 4 category allows 4 dwelling units per gross acre and a maximum floor area ratio of 0.25. This designation allows for the consideration of agricultural, residential, neighborhood commercial, office uses, and multi-purpose projects. Next are the impacts. As far as existing conditions currently under AR 1 to 5, the site could consider 94 dwelling units or 5,128,101 square feet of non-residential uses. Under the proposed future land use designation of residential 4, the site could consider 1,883 dwelling units or the same amount of square footage for non-residential uses. During the rezoning process, commercial locational criteria may affect the allowable square footage for potential non-residential development. The proposed amendment will result in the increase in development potential by allowing higher residential and greater commercial intensity. And this concludes my presentation for ACCPA 2507, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Were there any questions from the commissioners on this one? Commissioner Linkus.
Thank you for the presentation. I just wondered if it would be relatively easy to show how this relates to the publicly initiated urban service area extension. Like where are they in proximation to each other?
Yeah, I believe it's, maybe if I'm wrong, I believe it's to the west of Bon Waimama Road in this area. So it'd be, I believe this is an area right here.
Can you flip to, do you have the land use map? Yeah, there you go. It's all of the dark blue.
Okay.
Is what we considered the other evening.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Were there any other questions from the commissioners? Not seeing any, we'll thank you and move on to our next agenda item, 6J, HCCPA 25-08, Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment, 16410 Bon Waimama Road, Urban Service Area Expansion, and the presenter is Alexis Myers.
Yes, Alexis Myers, Planning Commission staff, here again to present HCCPA 2508, located at 16410 Bon Waimama Road for the Urban Service Area Extension, or expansion. This is a privately initiated map amendment that is large in scale and approximately 470.9 acres. The applicant is requesting to expand the urban service area by the 470.9 acres. This amendment is associated with HCCPA 2507, which is the request to change the future land use category from AR 1 to 5 to Res 4. Again, this is the general location map. As I mentioned before, this amendment is associated with HCCPA 2507. It is in the rural area within the limits of the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Community Plan. It is located north of State Road 674 and east of Bon Waimama Road. Again, here is the area of the site. The site is outlined in pink, and the blue line indicates the existing urban service area boundary. Currently, the future land use designation is agricultural rural 1 to 5. The applicant is proposing to amend the future land use category to residential 4 and expand the urban service area by 470.9 acres. Next are the impacts. The proposed amendment will result in the increase in development potential by allowing higher residential density and greater commercial intensity. And this concludes my presentation for ACCPA 2508, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commissioners? I did have one suggestion. I think this one's the same way. You should probably reverse it and do the urban service area expansion first.
Yeah, okay. I already sent a note to Sharon.
Okay. I also had another thought on this one. This is privately initiated, right? So that would mean that the applicant envisions taking care of things like running water and sewer lines and all that stuff. Or, I mean, I know that's not necessarily within our purview. I'm just curious because my reason, let me say this broadly, like we were determining the public one last time, and there were a lot of unanswered questions about these sorts of infrastructure issues and if we had the capacity as a county to deal with them. And it seems to me that the private sector seems very gung-ho to go ahead and do this. And I'm always a little bit more comfortable with them because when they say they'll take on the cost and they'll do things, they're going to do that, you know what I mean? So I'm just wondering, you know, it being that far afield from the actual current line, is there infrastructure there now, or is that going to have to be, you know?
Well, we'll have to see what the review agencies have to say. I think we're still getting those comments in, but once the urban service area line is moved, the development will, I mean, the county will have the same rules whether it is a publicly or a privately initiated amendment to the comprehensive plan. The rules will be the same for those developments coming in regardless. The only difference was those properties that were under the WVR2 land use category had some different rules under the plan today for how they developed. This is not in that land use category today.
Okay. And what was the land use category it's in today? Agriculture?
Agricultural Rural 1 to 5.
Okay. So this is kind of like the opposite donut hole that we would be doing with this one. I mean, I love donut holes, so don't get me wrong. They're delicious, but I'm just trying to get things clear in my head here. So in one, it's not urban service area. The earlier one we saw, in this one, it's going to be a donut hole of urban service area.
Well, it would be going beyond, I mean, it's not, if the BOCC expands the urban service area, it will just continue it extending it.
Right, creeping.
But we don't know whether or not they will have done that
Right.
yet.
Right. But if they don't, then it will be a donut hole.
Right.
Okay, that's what I was talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions or comments from the commissioners? All right, then we'll look forward to seeing this come back. Thank you for the information. All right. Next up, we have 6K, unincorporated Hillsborough County land development codes, and there's a couple of them here, so bear with me. Number one is LDC 25-0399, outdoor storage of recreational vehicles and private pleasure crafts. Number two, LDC 25-0400, subdivisions of existing non-conforming lots. LDC 25-0401, rezoning applications with related Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan amendments. LDC 25-0402, maximum building height measurement. LDC 25-0404, minor changes to plan development revisions. LDC 25-0486, non-commercial communication towers ancillary to public use facilities, and the presenter is Tyreek Royal.
Good evening, Tyreek Royal, Planning Commission staff, and I'll be presenting Brian Grady from Development Services as he'll be going over the LDC amendments.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brian Grady, Hillsborough County Development Services Department. As noted, this is a workshop regarding the round one of the Land Development Code amendments. Just some important dates for your information. The first public hearing in front of the Board of County Commissioners will be April 10th. The public consistency finding meeting with the Planning Commission will be April 14th, and then the second public hearing for this item in front of the Board of County Commissioners will be May 8th. As noted, the first item to be discussed is LDC Amendment 25-399. This is amendment dealing with the storage of recreational vehicles and private pleasure crafts. The text amendment will permit outdoor storage of recreational vehicles, private pleasure crafts, and utility trailers that were planned out rezoning. Through this amendment, we would differentiate the storage of RVs, private pleasure crafts, and utility trailers from other items considered open storage when permitted in a PD zoning district. Again, this amendment would basically allow these in plan categories that currently would not allow the storage of those issues because they'd be defined as open storage. This would change that definition to allow that exemption for these, given the fact that unlike other open storage of RVs and boats are typically serving residential neighborhoods and support to those residential developments. So this would provide an exemption from these being defined as open storage. But again, this would require a plan development zoning for any of these, anybody wishing to utilize this. So it would provide the ability for the county to address compatibility through the plan development zoning. That concludes my presentation on that, and available if you have any questions. seeing.
Oh, you can keep going through all.
Okay,
all
just
of
go
them.
through all of them?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Next item is LDC 25-0400. This is dealing with non-conforming lots and subdivisions recognition. This text amendment will provide for a subdivision procedure to bring into conformance lot splits that cannot be recognized under current county regulations because they include non-conforming lots. This would allow lot splits to include non-conforming lots to be platted and brought into compliance with subdivision requirements. These new subdivisions would not exceed the densities established in the current future land use designations and was subject to all applicable zoning district standards. This proposed LDC provision will only apply to lots in existence as of February 1st, 2025. Next item then is LDC 25-0401, rezoning applications with related comprehensive plan amendments. This text amendment will allow an applicant to elect having a rezoning application be heard concurrently with a related comprehensive plan amendment for unincorporated Hillsborough County. An applicant will be able to elect to have a rezoning application that is contingent on a request to amend the future of Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County be scheduled concurrently. Any applicant proceeding in accordance with the LDC that is contingent on a request to amend the future of Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan amendment will be reviewed for compliance with the proposed concurrent future land use comprehensive plan amendments. The next item then is LDC 25-0402, maximum building height definitions. This text amendment will clarify how maximum building height is measured to be consistent with the Florida Building Code. The LDC currently defines height as the vertical distance measured from the lowest proposed finished grade of the structure vertically beneath the highest point of the structure, whereas the Florida Building Code defines height as the vertical distance from the grade plane as defined in the Florida Building Code to the average height of the highest roof surface. Updating the height definition in the LDC to align it with the Florida Building Codes will simplify and avoid conflicts during the review of building permits. Next amendment is in LDC 25-0404, minor changes to plan development revisions. This text amendment will update the administrative modifications permitted to approved plan developments authorized by the administrator. This amendment would allow 2 modifications to be approved administratively. Changes to PD site plans that include the configuration and adjustments of internal driveways and parking areas that do not affect setbacks, buffers, site access, or any other approved conditions or standards, and the conversion of mobile home units to single-family conventional units. The next LDC amendment then would be LDC 25-0486. Non-commercial communication towers ancillary to public use facilities. This text amendment will allow non-commercial communication towers in public use facilities. These communications towers will be permitted in public use sites if they are an integral part of a county public use facility providing emergency protective services, i.e. police, fire, and emergency operations, that is only serving the communication needs of the public use facility. The maximum height allowance for the communications towers will be 200 feet, subject to the setback requirements in the Land Development Code, Section 611-29E2, wireless communication facilities. And that concludes the presentations and are available for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes, Commissioner Lucas.
Yes.
I'm curious about the concurrent rezoning and comp plan amendment piece.
Yes.
Is that, and I don't know if you would have the answer to this offhand, but I'm curious what other jurisdictions that are in this area do in terms of that. Is that something that would be unique?
I don't have that answer, but I can certainly get that. And I think it's probably, my guess is it's probably fairly unique compared to a lot of the other jurisdictions. But the Board of County Commissioners has lately expressed a positive liking the fact they actually like that they have them here concurrently. So this is sort of implementing their sort of policy that if an applicant desires to have one, and to make it basically to streamline the process, because right now they have to, it's part of the workshops and the process to make that determination of whether or not there's concurrent. But this basically will codify it to say, all right, if you want to ask for it, then you can do concurrent.
All right.
But certainly we could get that information to you to see if that's something other jurisdictions do also.
Yeah, I guess I would be curious about sort of best practices or what's typical in that as this moves forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes,
If
go
I
ahead.
can, I would just add that both the city of Tampa and the city of Plant City do allow
Do they?
for,
Okay.
and in the case of the city of Plant City, almost require that, not require, but strongly encourage that if you're doing a plan amendment, that you bring forward your zoning at the same time, because similar to the Board of County Commissioners, they really like being able to see the what they're going to get the
Yeah.
zoning for. Certainly, we've shared, that somebody can come back and modify their zoning for something else, because the plan categories are often broad and allow for multiple things. But there seems to be a preference for doing it this way.
Okay, well, thank you for that clarification. And in that case, I feel like consistency across the different practices is probably useful. So thank you.
I did have a question. I was wondering, and you kind of touched on this, Mr. Grady, and obviously, I don't know if you can answer this for them, but like you said, the Board of County Commissioners has had this as their pet kind of thing for a while now, and I'm wondering, is this going to be like the ultimate answer and they won't have it as their pet thing now, or are they still going to kind of want them brought together, or everybody's like, we don't know what those people are going to do? Is there any sentiment as to, that?
Yeah, I don't have a sentiment on it. I think, again, the intent of this is just to streamline that, because I think both the Board of County Commissioners and probably a lot of applicants prefer to do it that way, and so this sort of streamlines that and codifies it so that if an applicant has a desire to bring that rezoning concurrent with the comp plan amendment, it gives them the ability to do that.
Okay, all right. And I did have one more question on the maximum building height measurement, 250402. I was wondering, as that changes down to grade, are we going to be adjusting the actual maximum numbers any, or does that change anything?
It won't change the maximum building heights. It's just, again, how you measure it. Since there's a difference between the two, we felt it was prudent to have them line up. And so it won't change the maximum building heights in the district. So just, again, how you determine that maximum building, how you measure it.
All right. All right. Are there any other questions, comments, thoughts from the commissioners? Not seeing any. Well, thank you for the information, sir.
Thank you.
And we will move on to our next agenda item, which is item number 7, evaluation of the executive director. The presenter is myself and Tracy Robbins. So I will turn it over to Mr. Robbins.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. It is, I think you're fully aware, time for Ms. Zornita's annual review, and we've circulated packets for you with questions and to get some feedback from you. I've received some of those. I think everybody here at the dais may have those. Is that correct? Anybody need one? Okay, well, I'm going to stop and collect those then, and I'll turn them in to Sean, I believe it is, who will put together a summary of consensus of the Planning Commission so that you can see how your fellow commissioners rated Ms. Zornita in all the categories, and a consensus total for each.
Yeah, and we'll get the ones from those who are not present as well.
Mine's not stapled, sorry.
That's all right. Not a problem.
Yeah, I put my name on each page, yeah. All right. Next up on our agenda is item number 8, our Executive Director's Report, and the presenter is Malicious Zornita.
Great. Thank you. Look forward to seeing the feedback on the year. As I shared in the information that I sent out is part of my evaluation on the year. I did want to reiterate some of the pieces that I shared in there about the leadership reorganization that I did. I asked Mr. College to join me in here as I've named him as a Chief of Planning and Operations for the organization to add some focus to our leadership team on quality, streamlining, and efficiency for the organization, adding some additional capacity to the team to address some strategic priorities in those areas. As part of that, we will also be having a new division director for our strategic planning and environmental and research division, and that will be Melissa Dickens. They will both be taking on those roles at the end of the month, and then there will be a transition period as additional staff as Melissa's position gets filled within the organization. I look to make this change because over my tenure, there's been a lot of changes in the organization. The organization has taken on more and more workload and more higher profile nature of work. And that's a great thing. That's something when I came on as executive director, I actually sought for this organization to do. But at the same time, the composition of the staff of the agency has changed quite a bit. The staff team that I lead now has a very different tenure than the team that I took on when I became the director. And they need different coaching and guidance, and that's something that Mr. College in particular I think is very good at assisting with. And he will be good at supporting the division directors in doing that. Strategically, I think it's very important for me to be spending my time on some key projects and priorities. As I looked over the last year at the number of times that I was double booked in things or sitting in meetings and having staff waiting on me for more administrative tasks or to review something, that wasn't an efficient utilization of the agency's time. And so I believe this additional capacity will ensure the agency is moving efficiently and getting things done as best as possible, making sure our deadlines are met and our quality is maintained. So I just wanted to make sure all of you read that part of the piece that I sent out, introduce Sean in that new role. He and I would like to meet with each of you one-on-one over the course of the next month or so as your schedules are available, to get your feedback on how things are going, places where we can focus and make sure our priorities are in order. We'd also really like to get back to offering briefings to all of the planning commissioners. That's something we did a lot. As I was reflecting, I was like, gosh, we used to, I mean, Giovanni had a standing briefing before every meeting. And we used to be able to spend time doing that. And that's something we've sort of gotten away from. And as complex as the issues that are coming before you, I think you all deserve that opportunity to ask the questions and hear from us. So, of course, you all are busy, though, and I'm not looking to impose time on you either if you don't want them, but we'd like to be able to offer that and have the capacity in our schedules to do that again. So we'll be reaching out for some meetings and some time with you all, and look forward to doing that. Another item that I wanted to touch on before I dive into my normal sort of report, after the public hearing on the 24th on the urban service area expansions, I have had a number of conversations with the county administration who reached out because they watched the hearing and saw the number of questions that you all had regarding infrastructure service in particular related to the expansion of the urban service area and those amendments. And Greg Hordell, Deputy County Administrator, offered to come to your April meeting with some of his team to answer questions, have a dialogue around planning for infrastructure, planning for growth. We don't know what the Board of County Commissioners is going to do with these amendments. That hearing is on Thursday night, so we'll know the outcome by April. But whether or not they move them forward to the state, either way, we think there would be a benefit to having some dialogue with you all about what the next steps are for planning for infrastructure service to serve an expanded urban service area, what comes next. There have been approved privately initiated amendments, regardless of whether these other areas are expanded. So I wanted to share that offer. I thought there would be benefit to having that continued conversation and additional opportunity for input from the county staff, but wanted to get your input before moving forward with an agenda item.
All right. Any thoughts? Yeah, Commissioner Linkus.
There's a lot here, so I'm going to go through my list a little bit. I just wanted to say I can see a lot of sense in the reorganization. As someone who's relatively new and kind of drinking from the fire hose coming onto here, I do see, I certainly would benefit from the opportunity to have briefings, and having the capacity for you to be able to do that is something that I certainly feel like I would benefit from, and I think that would allow the group to make better decisions. And as you say, I think a lot of what's coming at us in the coming months will be very complex, and that extra layer of opportunity to learn will be helpful. I also, as someone who, right now, I'm wearing my planning commissioner hat serving Temple Terrace, but I do work with the planning commission very often on the fellowship program. There's a lot of our students who work here at the planning commission, and I am always amazed at how many times I get emails directly from Melissa about sort of timesheets or things like that. And I absolutely can see that you would need for the efficiency of the organization, the capacity at the top to kind of have some support at the higher level for that. So I can see that makes a lot of sense to have a more efficient operation. And then I also would appreciate the opportunity to hear from the county. I made the motion that we had in our last meeting, and I think that reflected a lot of sort of questions that I do have around the infrastructure capacity that I heard from the citizens who were here that day. So I think it would be helpful for there to be capacity to answer some of those questions.
All right, Commissioner Cardenas.
Yeah, I was just going to say, always doing those pre-briefings for me were great, because there's always gray area in all this stuff that you just don't necessarily know. Mm-hmm. And I mean, still feeling like, it's a constant learning process. I think Chairman Joseph reads through this stuff and he just pulls this stuff out and he's like, all right, I got it. And like for me, it was really great to be able to get assistance in being able to do that.
Good points. Yeah.
Yeah,
Commissioner
I
Bowden.
agree. I've actually went to a few of the staff members months ago and asked different questions. So I think having the ongoing, consistent opportunities will be great. I think I agree that the restructuring is good as well, because, like I said, it gives it gives an opportunity for for you to be more focused on the strategic area, and then I think that lost your name. Sean. I think my experience with Sean so far, and I've noticed him with the staff, I think it would be great overall as far as, the mentorship.
Well, good comments. I think wanted to say for myself, I think the reorganization is good, but I'm interested to see, and I'm going to be watching like a hawk, because policy is one of the things that I just love to debate. So who takes the role after Miss Dickens moves? I think that's whoever fills that role, because she was the policy team head. That's a very important position. We've had some back and forth about using words that don't exist and things like that. And I know what goes on social media and the times we're living in. I hear all that, but I'm on things like a hawk. So whoever fills that policy role is a big person, and I'm going to have my eye on that. You two do a great job. I've worked with Sean for many years since I've been here. Spirit team is incredible. I think Ms. Dickens would be a great addition to that. She helped a lot with the LID stuff and organizing that kind of stuff. So I could see where that's a natural shift. But I think whoever fills that policy team head role there, that's going to be a key position. So I know that my eyes are going to be on it. So All right. Are there any other comments or questions from the commissioners? Thoughts? Not seeing any, then we'll thank
Okay.
you.
Oh, well, I have
Oh,
a
yeah.
few more things to cover.
All right.
Sorry. But so so we're good with the county administration having an agenda item
Yes.
in
Yeah,
April.
I think-
Okay, great. All right, then just a couple of things to highlight from my more normal, typical report. Just wanted to mention that we're moving forward with the Riverview Community Plan kickoff. That will have community meetings on March 22nd and 25th at the Riverview Community Library. That we're doing at the request of the county and in conjunction with THEA, looking at the potential extension of the Crosstown Expressway down 301. So we're excited to be moving forward with that. We had a great partnership with the Gulf Coast Safe Street Summit and a community conversation that we hosted with the national speaker that was brought in on safe streets in early February. I had the opportunity to meet with John Hill from the Tampa Bay Times editorial board. He had a lot of questions about the urban service area expansion. We've had a number of meetings with stakeholders on the Tampa Future Land Use Update, which we're wrapping up a final draft that will be presented to you next month. We've met with the THAN representatives, with the West Shore Alliance, with the City of Tampa a number of times. I wanted to highlight that we have a special public hearing on April 7th for the Tampa Future Land Use Update. That should be on everybody's calendars, but if you want to check right now, that'd be great. But that's April 7th at 5:30, just on the Tampa Future Land Use. And then the other items, as you noted, Commissioner Kona, will be on April 14th that we heard about tonight. We also had a meeting last week to kick off with the City of Plant City the update of their comprehensive plan, which is very exciting. A couple of updates on amendments that were heard by the jurisdictions. Plant City moved forward the update to the Northeast Master Plan. The City Commission transmitted that to the state last month. A small-scale plan amendment in the City of Tampa on 26th Street was adopted by the City of Tampa. The Board of County Commissioners voted to transmit both of the amendments to the Energy Industrial Park in February. The more substantive amendment, they added some additional policy language related to having some additional conditions related to environmental permitting related to the residential component being included in the rezoning. They added it to the text of the comprehensive plan, though. So when the zoning comes back, there'll have to be conditions related to that. But they also moved forward for transmittal the planned environmental community and the privately initiated urban service area amendment in Baum. And then they approved some small-scale amendments in Lutz, the Nonasassa, and one in Lithia, and approved the fourth urban service area expansion in Waimama that was privately initiated. And that concludes my...
All right. Were there any questions or comments, discussions? Commissioner Linkus.
Sorry, did you say April 7th is when the City of Tampa?
Yes.
Okay, I'll have to check with Sharon. That's not on my calendar, so.
Oh, okay.
I'll check with Sharon.
Commissioner Cohn.
I would say, so April 14th is when all of these are coming back. Yeah, I would, can you move public hearings to be earlier? Is there any? No?
Oh, turn it on. Your mic.
Your mic's.
There you go.
No, they're not like the start date for the meeting itself. they're required to be held after that hour.
Okay. They're just two very big tracts of land, and in those areas, there's no shortage of opinions. So just, we should be prepared.
Just bring a pillow.
All right. Any other questions, comments, discussion items? Commissioner Bowden?
Yeah, I had a question. From last month, there was some letters associated with those. Any feedback?
We're still in the midst of briefing the Board of County Commissioners for their hearing on Thursday. In each of the briefings, I'm letting them know about the letters. I think there's been a lot of, I would say, support for the idea about the issue about the septic tanks and the splitting of parcels to allow somebody to subdivide their property and not have to hook up to water and sewer. There's been a lot of support for that idea. We've only talked to 3 of the 7 so far, so take it for what it's worth. There's been some questions about how much more study needs to occur in Waimama and Baum, and what all an expansion area study would involve related to the other letters. I would characterize it as more questions than anything else.
All right. Yeah, I warned you about that term study. That's a dangerous term around here. I mean, sometimes, well, I just know from being in so many of these, like the MPO board meeting and all these other board meetings, Mayor Ross says it all the time, and it's a good point. We do all these studies, we pay all this money, and then they go sit on a shelf somewhere and nothing ever happens. I don't think that's necessarily what this board was trying to get across, that we want some indefinite study of all this stuff. I think the point was that there was information that we couldn't put our hands on in that report, and that information should at least be in that report at that level. So, I mean, when you talk to those county commissioners, let them know that we're not talking about indefinite studies just for the sake of studying. Planning Commission staff, and I made the point in the meeting, did a very good job with the work they did. Those probably are the areas, and development probably needs to happen there, but some clarity on how that could, even if it's over and unders. I don't want a crystal ball. Over and unders are fine, but we didn't even have that in that report, right? So that's, I think, a very important thing. So that term study, be careful there. We're not talking about indefinite studies.
Yeah, and I've tried to emphasize that there were some questions that were not able to be answered because we didn't have the staff there, we didn't have the information. I think that's why the county staff, I think, wants to come to have those discussions with you all. Yes.
All right. And while we have Mr. College in here, I just wanted to say, because things got wild at the meeting last time and I didn't get a chance to thank you, but I did notice you and the SPEAR team were a big part of that urban area expansion, the research and the analysis that was done to be able to have staff bring forward that motion that was brought forward. So again, I want to commend this agency and the agency staff for the work that was done in that report, even though we didn't necessarily, find it consistent. So kudos to you. Are there any other comments, discussion items, or questions from the commissioners for our executive director? Not seeing any. You're off the hook. Okay, and we will move on to our next agenda item. Item number 9 is other business, chair's business. I have none. Old business. I don't believe there is any. Anybody have any new business? Not seeing any. Any committee reports? Anybody? No. I do have a short committee report from the TPO. We met on, what was that, February 12th, and it was a pretty quick meeting, pretty usual business stuff. We had one action item for tip amendments that went pretty smoothly, not a lot of public comment. And then we had a public hearing for the LRTP. We had some amendments to that, and there also wasn't a lot of comment on that, and we passed that. So both action items were passed by the TPO board, and it was a very short, quick meeting. So business as usual at the TPO. at least until the regional discussion comes up again, so we'll see. All right. Are there any other committee reports from anyone? No, not seeing any. Then at this point in time, which is 5:14 p.m., we have covered all our business, and this meeting is adjourned. Good evening, everyone.
So there cannot be a public hearing.
Okay.
So
Are we back? Oh, okay. Before I adjourn, well, I guess the meeting's adjourned, but I just wanted to announce to everyone that the public hearing that we're supposed to have at what time, 5:30, has been canceled due to a misnotice. So we will not be having our public hearing tonight. So anybody who's tuned in on TV, this will be the end of it. So again, good evening, everyone, and we'll see you next time.